Welcome back to another Thursday on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your Thursday host, Yeka, and this week I will be showing you how to cast a spell Yeka style. So our topic comes from, I believe it was JustRandomly. Anyways, the full topic is in the description box below. But basically they're asking us to talk about or show how we do rituals, specifically opening and closing them. And Kara added a little bit onto the topic of saying what's our feelings on recording rituals. So personally, I'm not comfortable with my rituals being recorded. I have no problem with other people doing it. I actually have on many occasions really appreciated when other people have done it because that has helped me to learn and get ideas. But it's not, usually when I'm doing a ritual, it's something that's really intense and personal, and it just feels it's hard for me to be fully present with the ritual when I know that it's being recorded. So in a minute we're gonna jump into the wide shot and I'm gonna show you how I actually go through a ritual. But before I do that, I wanna talk a little bit about what it actually means and in the context that I'm talking about. So when I say ritual, there's two different kind of overlapping concepts. There's one, the ritual, which is a spell, which is a little bit more involved, the intentional, the working with intention and purposely putting your will or changing something, which is what I'll be showing you how I do, what I do, how I do it. The other ritual is the little rituals that we do every day. When we talk about ritual in a more common sense of, your morning rituals or the ritual that you have when you get into the car, things like that. And that is where the majority of my work goes in my practice, is into those little rituals throughout the day, because those are the habits that become unconscious, and those are the habits which create the way it feels to be you, to be me, how we go through life feeling and what we do with life and how we interact with life. The vast majority of the interaction that we have comes from an unconscious place. And it has to be that way because there's a limited amount of focus that we can have on a conscious level. So on an unconscious level, the habits take over, rituals take over, and I find it very important to try to intentionally form those habits and those rituals until they become unconscious, and there's a lot of power there. But what I'm going to do now is show you what I do when I'm doing a full-on spell, a piece of intention work. So let's switch over to the wide angle. So I'm going to show you what I do for ritual. And again, there isn't a right or a wrong. This is just the method that I use, and I'm going to go ahead and show you and walk through some of what I do. Again, this isn't an actual ritual because I'm not comfortable filming a real ritual that I'm doing, but we'll walk through it and you'll see a little bit what I'm talking about. So there's different levels of involvement that I'll do. Some rituals are just moments, or some spells are just moments out of the day. And I'm going to show you a more involved one, which are ones that I don't do as often, but the core of it is the same. So our viewer asked specifically about the opening and closing of a ritual. So first, I would find a place to actually do the ritual. And some place where I feel emotionally and physically safe is very, very important. Right now I'm inside in my living room. I like to be outside, but it's so hot and so bright outside right now that you wouldn't even be able to, that it would be too washed out and I would be sweating and would be physically uncomfortable to be outside right now. But when I can, I prefer to be outside, so that'll often be in early morning, late evening. I like to be, when I can, barefoot, barehanded, I like to get my hands, I like to feel the earth and the dirt and the wind, and as much as I can surrounding. Sometimes I will stand up. Honestly, I am actually most comfortable in a squatting position. This is the position that I hang out in most of the time. We don't have a lot of furniture in our house either, so this is really how I hang out most of the time. But one might also be cross-legged. For this video, I'm going to be in this position because I think that's sort of a, I don't know, it just seems like a more appropriate position for a video. So I'll be in this position. But outside, that's what I would do. So in a more involved ritual, I begin by casting a circle. And sometimes I would do that just with my eyes closed, and sometimes I would use actual objects. So I grabbed a few kind of example objects that I might use. For me, the important thing is the symbology that these objects have. Some traditions have very specific objects that are associated with the specific directions. For me, it's kind of, there are certain things that I use more often, but it needs to kind of have that feeling to me. So for instance, I have a few things over here. I would choose one object for each direction. So let's pretend you're north. You're actually east. Well, sort of. So I would take something like this, a pine cone that I painted blue. This would be north or winter for me. And I don't think the circle is going to be in the frame, but I would go ahead and place that at north. Then I'd have another object. Here's an egg from my friend's chicken. And I would place that in the east, which is sort of spring for me. This, you probably can't really even see from there, but this is a stone painted like a strawberry, which we put as decoys for the birds out in the strawberry patches in the summer. So I would then place that in the south, and then rather self-explanatory, a little acorn squash pumpkin-y hybrid in the west for the autumn. And then an object or something like this, which is my drink at the moment, for center or spirit. And for me, the center of spirit is about relationship, and it's the coming together. So I would bring this to the center and give it a little sip, or something like that. I don't typically use songs or chants or things like that. That's actually, we talked about that last week's video, check that out for more info on that. But that is how I would begin a more formal ritual, by doing that. Now, the next part is the part that is the core of what I do, and this is what I was taught as a very young child. I think probably the earliest I can remember doing it would be around 4 years old or so. The casting a circle, all of that, that came later in my life. That was something that, you know, I learned about from other people, from watching people, from books, but what I was taught by my parent was about working with intention and using visualization for that. So what I do, now this, I may or may not close my eyes for this, I will often keep them open, let them blur out the focus. I look for where I feel that my consciousness is, and feel, I'm talking about a physical sensation. Most of the time I find it hanging out right here, outside of my body, right in front of my eyes or forehead. And I feel it, I invite it to come back in and come into my body and down into my chest, around my heart. And this is a feeling that happens, but also I'll use some visualization. I'll visualize it as like a light that comes down and then fills the whole chest cavity and kind of overflows. And from there, that is what I see as my will or intention that I'm going to be working with. Depending on the day, I might also do a grounding where I often like the great tree meditation. So I will see myself becoming a tree. And this is to connect with the earth around me, which is something that we already are, but it helps me to be much more aware of it. So I see myself becoming the tree and my skin slowly becoming bark and roots going down through my body, out through my feet and my toes, into the earth down below me, growing through the layers of the soil and finding those pockets of moisture and down into the regolith and through the mantle until all the way down to the core of the planet where there's the heat and fire that it brings back up through the roots and then through my feet and my body, up and out, and then from me I visualize and feel branches coming out and leaves unfurling from that, breathing in the air and photosynthesizing and bringing the light and the energy in from around and back down in through my body, down through the earth, and feeling that exchange of energy and myself as part of it. So that then there is my will and consciousness, which is mixed and part of it and yet separate at the same time. So whatever work and intention that I do, I am refilled and replenished by the earth, by the air, by the stars and everything around, so that I don't empty myself. And I keep that connection that whatever will I'm putting out is not taxing on me. So from there, we'd work on whatever the specific intention, whatever the spell is that I would want to cast. And that's really going to depend on what it is. Recently in my life, there's, big theme with the little one in here, has been bringing forth new life and creating good foundations in the world that we want to be living in and family. So there's been a lot of creation energy that I've been working with and intention that I've been working with. So there's been a lot of giving. So for example, something that I've been doing has been also looking for how to replenish myself, because I don't think that one can simply give. One must also be replenishing. So that's why I brought this one as an example of something that I've been doing, where I will see this cup and the liquid that I have inside of it, and I will feel that consciousness, that energy that we talked about in my chest, filling it up, and that's my will, and I will send it in as revitalization I will see it expanding, going through my arms into the cup itself, and the energy from the roots, from the earth coming up and also going in and surrounding it and infusing it, and everything coming in from above, and then taking a sip and feeling as that liquid, as I feel the liquid in my mouth, as I swallow it and feel it go down into my body, seeing that as light coming and filling and rejuvenating. So that would be an example of a ritual that I would do. And that would be the core of the ritual. And I'd probably hang out in that feeling, in that place of kind of, I guess bliss would be the word to call it, just focusing and keeping my mind there. And when it starts to wander a little bit, it's okay, just bring it back, not chastising it, just bringing it right back to where I'm focusing. And then when I feel ready, I would go ahead and slowly see you know, the branches and everything come back in, you know, my skin. I was hoping to finish this before the memory ran out, but it did. So then when I would ready to close it, I would do sort of I'll do a reverse of how I got there. So I'd see the branches kind of ungrow back down into me, my skin return to normal away from, you know, bark and roots into flesh and human, and the roots come up, but not all the way because that connection's still always there, but I don't want to keep it, I don't want to keep myself so open and so vulnerable when I'm coming back into a world of well, we all live in this world, you know how stressful it can be, even just to get on social media. So keeping that connection open that I created, but also not so open that I am completely vulnerable. I see that coming back, and the intensity of the light that's my consciousness, kind of letting that fade back a little bit. But still, I like to, when I can remember to bring it down into my chest, I like to keep it there. And I'd probably take a few deep breaths, and then go ahead and, if I did have my eyes closed, I would open them or refocus them. Then I would go through and the opposite direction of the direction that I opened it, and remove each of the objects, bringing them back to center. Then good shakeout, kind of pat myself. I'd usually speak my name out loud, you know, kind of get back into here. And so that is how I would do a little bit more of a formal ritual. If I was doing something less formal, a lot of those components would stay there, but be less developed. So I might quickly take a deep breath, see my intention come into my chest, and feel those roots form immediately from coming up from the earth. Think about the intention that I had and breathe it into whatever it was. That was just an example of one kind of spell that one could do. There's all kinds of different ones. So that is the process that I work through. I hope that just watching me kind of mock it out and talk about it was helpful.